Hey everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live, Reimagine AI Collaboration for Business, 5 practical prompts and workflows. If you're currently exploring how to incorporate AI into your role and your team's workflows, today's session is for you. So moving on to our agenda slide, today we'll quickly cover some fundamentals of using AI in your role. Then we're going to deep dive into a cross-functional business scenario that explores how different departments use AI to accomplish the same goal. And finally, we'll have about a 10-minute Q&A. So if you have any questions as we go along, share them in the chat and we'll try to respond to them at the end. So moving on to our next slide, I'm your host for the day, Mateo Valdez. I'm an account executive here at Microsoft. What that means is I get to lead Microsoft's strategic partnership with some of the world's leading universities and academic medical centers, and working with them on how AI and technology can support their institutional goals. But folks, enough about me. If you notice I sound a little nervous, it's because today we are among greatness, or amongst greatness. We're with greatness. And I am, of course, referring to our guest, Andrea Tseng Rioux. Andrea Tseng Rioux is an AI specialist here at Microsoft, also in our higher education team, where she's advised countless universities across the nation on their institutional AI adoption strategy. She is the perfect guest for today's session, as she has taught thousands of faculty, professionals, and students on how to leverage AI securely and effectively. I'm sure you're thinking, wow, this Mateo guy knows a lot about Andrea and pronounces her full name really well. Well, I actually have had the pleasure of working with Andrea every day for a few years now. And even crazier, I was her summer intern a few years ago when I joined Microsoft. So yeah, Andrea, I'm so happy to have you on. How are you? Ooh, having some trouble hearing you.
I'm doing great this morning. Glad to be with you. Just got to LA this morning, so excited to get started.
Awesome. I know you're traveling all the time. Wishing you best of luck, and thank you for making some time to be here today. So I would love to start with you, giving us some quick insight into your role and how you like to incorporate AI into your day to day.
Absolutely. So I am a workforce AI specialist, and I support higher education accounts across the western part of the U.S., as well as they start to adopt AI specifically around how to leverage Copilot every day, from whether you're a student or faculty or in the business of getting school done, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea. So let's move on to the next slide, because that all sounds awesome, but I'm going to be vulnerable for a second. I have zero clue on how to actually get started with AI and how to make it valuable for me and all of my tasks and responsibilities. So there, I said it. So please teach me and teach us, Andrea, how can we get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to dive into some great ways on how to get started with Copilot specifically, and thinking about how to leverage AI. One of the ways that I leverage it personally is to have it act as an editor and come over the shoulder and make sure that my documents and my things are good to go. English was not my strongest subject in school, and so I've struggled with that. And so this tool has really made it possible for me to really come across ready to go and polished.
Amazing. So, let's move on to our next slide, because, this is all great, but, what does this process look like? Like, what is the framework that you use, Andrea, when you're kind of building your prompts and leveraging AI in your day to day?
Absolutely. So I love these 3 points here: the context, the creation, and the collaboration. So let's dive into what each of these mean. So let's start with the context. Asking Copilot to summarize documents, emails, meetings, and threads, and those things make it easy to get caught up. You and I are both in meetings all day long and have a lot of transcripts to get through. If we miss a meeting or take a day off, I'm sure many folks can relate, especially as the summer months are here and we are multitasking through the summer and being able to get caught up. So that's a great way to get started with context or text rich things to get caught up. And then jumping into creation, once you kind of have that analysis and summary and those things, you can work on getting to version 1 a whole lot faster. As you heard me mention before, the blank page is daunting for me. English is, again, writing, language arts, not my favorite thing to do. But I love that I can leverage Copilot to help me get off a blank page and at least get a draft started. I am so much better at critiquing and modifying than I am getting those first 10 words on the page. As you know, as we've worked together for several years now. So, those are great example to utilize is draft a concise email summarizing this for an executive audience. Mateo and I come from different generations, and there are times when we have had to leverage Copilot to make it have that executive audience that's a little bit more standard and broad rather than with our own flair and things like that. And so leveraging that as well as using it to, get wonderful images and things created as I'm working on presentations and such, because we're moving so fast in today's world. And then finally, we'll talk about collaboration and really leveraging AI to optimize the work that you're doing. So when it comes up, you'll see that for collaboration, we are really asking Copilot to find patterns that we as humans don't find. And that's really the leverage point of Copilot and AI in general, is it's finding those patterns and making those predictions on what should come next. So on the slide for collaboration, you're going to see it's also going to help you figure out how to prompt even better, use it as a thought partner. And I like to say it's not a search engine, it's an answer engine. It is helping you get to that answer. Copilot wants to make you happy. And so it's going to constantly give you ideas and suggestions. And every time you prompt with Copilot, I'll show you when we get into the demo in a minute, it's always going to give you an idea of what to do next. Look at that. I'm in the office and I've been so still, the lights went off. So there we go. Okay, let's keep going.
Love it. So, it sounds like you put a lot of thought and effort into what your prompts are, because, ultimately what you get out of AI is only as good as you put in. So appreciate you emphasizing kind of the framework that you use for this. And, as someone that dabbles in marketing and sales and a little bit of finance, a little bit of customer service and all of the above at the same time, how do I apply what you just told us into those roles to get value out of it and save time, energy, what have you?
Absolutely. In just a moment, we're going to launch into our demo where we focus in on marketing, sales, finance, and customer service. 4 big areas for all business operations and how these are going to build on each other. So in just a moment, they're going to move the screens over so that I can give you a demo, but we're going to take a look as we're able to build and work on creating these things with Copilot all the way through. So let's start with a marketing example here. So as you can see, I've jumped right into Copilot, and I am just using the basic Copilot that comes with your Microsoft 365 licensing. So I have not paid any additional for this license. So I just really want people to understand we're going to do all of this today with the basic license. And so for my marketing campaign, I've grabbed one of my whiteboarding brainstorming images, and I have worked with my prompt, and I've created a prompt: Copilot, validate our messaging and value prop against what this new customer segment cares about, pain points, and create a campaign brief in a Word document with proposed content and schedule. So what you'll notice here is I have added in my text. I've also added in the image here, because you'll notice my prompt is missing a lot of information because I want Copilot to really leverage the image that it has here. So now in a auto magical moment, it is going to create a response. But just for time's sake, we're going to jump right into our answers here. So what you can see here is Copilot walked us through the steps. If I want to see how it executed this, I can click in here and see how it thought through and its thinking and all of those pieces. And then you'll see that I was able to download this campaign brief, and then it tells me why it did what it did. And you can always go back and go back and forth with Copilot here to ask it to refine it, get more information. Because I don't trust live demos, I've already got the briefing document up right here. So what you can see here is that it has put together a solid brief over what needs to happen. It has the messaging and the value proposition here. It refines and lets us know how to refine that messaging framework and what's the best way to get those things out. And then the proposed campaign content. It walks through how many different things we need to have here. Even when I was teaching middle school students, I used to say things like 7 times 7 ways. We need to get information to folks a multiple of times in a multiple of different ways. And it walks us through that here. And it gives us the weeks of when it should go and what type of media it should be released in. And while we're talking about marketing here, and we think about selling something, which is a lot of what we're doing, think about marketing as also change management. How do you market internally to the way you're going to be changing things? So keeping that in mind as you're utilizing Copilot, marketing can also be a change management strategy, internal marketing.
So you did all of this, Andrea, just from like messy whiteboard sketches that you had and just uploaded that image. So that's fascinating. I've never done it that way specifically, but something I also do is I just, dictate. It's a lot faster to dictate than type. So I'm just thinking out loud, some thoughts, stream of consciousness, definitely not organized in any way whatsoever. And I just kind of dump it all, that whole transcription into Copilot and to make some sense out of it. So it's just fascinating to see how you can kind of have your candid stream of consciousness thoughts, input them into this prompt box and make something actually, consumable out of it. So really cool.
Absolutely. And Copilot is accessible in that way. You'll notice that the microphone is here and I can start dictating right here and get all of my information. Again, typing, spelling, not my favorite things. As you mentioned, just getting that stream of consciousness and then asking Copilot to help make sense of it. You can absolutely do that right from within the app on the browser, like I'm doing, the app on your desktop, or even the app on mobile. So I want to build on the next example is running into the sales side here. And so I've taken that campaign brief and I'm going to go right into kind of putting together what's next for the pitch deck, right? And I'm going to ask Copilot to create that too. And so here I'm going to take what we just created and I'm going to build on. So now I've taken the campaign brief that I just made, and I'm going to add it here and ask Copilot to create a pitch deck and incorporate insight and messaging from that brief to create that deck. So I'm going to go ahead and hit go again, and you're going to start to see Copilot is working to first read and process those things. And in an auto magical moment, the next tab, you're going to see here that I have Copilot's response all ready to go. It has generated that document and saved it to my OneDrive here. And you can see that it created that 10 slides and it is working on developing that. And you can see all of those images as you're going through. But then I want to call attention to here that you will see that Copilot's made suggestions. You can click those suggestions and it will continue to add to that information and that detail. And you can add additional, right? Like it doesn't know the competitors right now. And so it's going to ask me refining questions to help better understand what it needs for that piece. And so just to show you what this deck might look like, I have it up here in a deck here on the slide. And as you can see, it has walked through all of those pieces. There's a little cleanup that might need to be done because you should always remain the human in the loop here. And I might want to double check the font size, but otherwise it's done a great job of pulling the information together, ready for me to use with my teams and my executives and such. And so I think it's really great to see how far we've come in PowerPoint creation from Copilot, because PowerPoint is one of my favorite tools. And initially I was not impressed. And so now, a year after I started really focusing in on Copilot, seeing these decks that are so well executed and easy, I can get right to presenting really quickly, is kind of phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. And what you mentioned about Word documents,
the next one.
And what you mentioned about Word documents, Andrea, with like the hardest part is getting started, right? So using Copilot to get you, 80% of the way there, however you want to call it. This is kind of the PowerPoint version of that. So we see maybe there's some disbalance with the font sizes and some formatting things to be done, but the key is not giving you a fully finished product. It's getting you started with the menial tasks so you can kind of focus where it matters, and you need that human in the loop. And I love what you said about continuing to prompt using those suggested actions and follow-up prompts from Copilot, because never have I, entered like a very complex prompt and gotten the result the first time. We got to retrain our minds to think this is not a search engine. This isn't like I'm going to search something up and what I get is what I have. And if I don't like it, I have to search completely from scratch. This is a very iterative process to get to the place where it's valuable to you. So.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to challenge Copilot as you're thinking through things. Orange may not have been the first color I would have chosen. And I'd probably start thinking about, making sure that my prompts include, I want it to be a purple theme. Can't imagine why I would do that. All right, let's take a look at our finance example here. So we're going to keep building on the pitch deck and the campaign brief. And I'm going to bring in those new customer insights and things like that, and ask Copilot to help me with that. Again, I'm going to have it use these resources and create 2 new documents for me to be able to really understand the risks with this product and the resourcing and things like that. And so again, Copilot is using the campaign brief and those pieces to create those new documents. Again, I hit that automagical button. Now, if your prompt is getting really long, you can expand your prompting box so you can see the whole prompt. Sometimes when I can only see this much of it, it can get a little challenging. So don't be afraid to expand that. And I've attached these by going to the plus sign and adding content from work, or attaching my iCloud files. So I can upload something directly, or I can grab from my OneDrive files here. So the next thing, I'm going to go ahead and hit that button there. And again, while it's working, I'm going to, as you can see, it's lining things up and getting ready to go. I'm going to head over to my next tab and show you. Here we have the documents and the pieces that we've needed from our KPI guide. And it's included all of the things that I've asked it to. And again, it gives me additional ideas for things that I might want to follow up on. All right, so great so far to see it creating those things and being able to go from there. But the last piece that is probably the most important to me is making sure our customers are happy. And what does that customer support look like, and customer service? Because whether we are talking about true customers purchasing or internal customers using the tools and business operations, having all of those pieces together are important. And so use the campaign brief, the sales pitch, and all of the other resources that we've given you to identify the top onboarding goals, risks, and questions for this new segment. I'm making sure that I'm clear in my ask. And then I'm asking it to go do some research for me. Research typical onboarding requirements for this segment and propose a guide to onboarding approach with guided paths and FAQs, and create the first 30-day plan with milestones of really. The prompt has come a long way, and I'm asking it to do more complex things because it's built on the last 3 pieces that we've worked together to get this new plan. So again, let's tap that arrow and send it, but we are going to pop on over to our response from Copilot, and you'll see that this one is significantly longer, and it has included all of these pieces. But what you'll notice is now my screen is split because it immediately opened up a Copilot page. And so I have this page that I can invite, share with Mateo or share with whomever, and we can collaborate right here on this page with these responses and are able to kind of see those top onboarding goals, achieve that fast ROI, minimal operational disruption, and such. But it's created this full document for me to be able to use, but also collaborate with others on. And I just think it really outlines it really well, but makes it collaborative right away. So hopefully those 4 use cases through that process shows you how you can use it for so many things and get going with Copilot.
Andrea, thank you so much for the demo. That was really awesome. And thank you for showing us how Copilot brings all of these different disciplines, together to provide value to you in your day-to-day. I sure as heck have learned a lot. I'm going to save a lot of time and energy, applying the advice that you gave us. And I think we have, about 5 minutes till half of the hour to respond to some questions. So we can get started with that. All right.
Great.
So we see a question from at the Skillful Manager on YouTube. And the question is, what are your suggestions for ensuring all guardrails ensure proprietary or confidential information is not made public by using Copilot? Andrea, you want to take this one?
Yeah, this is a question that I answer multiple times a day. So thanks for bringing it up. Using M365 or Microsoft 365 is your enterprise login. And so when you're logged in with M365, you automatically have enterprise data protection with Copilot. So this is the Copilot for work, for business. And we don't have access to your data. We don't train on your data. We don't share your data with our partners. All of that remains private inside your tenant, and it is not being utilized to better Copilot. And so I think that's one of the biggest advantages of using Copilot within your Microsoft ecosphere for work.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea. We have a specific PowerPoint question. I know you love PowerPoint, Andrea, but I'm curious on your experimentations with this one. But the question from Mike Steitler on LinkedIn is, how do you apply corporate branding to the deck?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think this has changed a lot over the last couple of months within Copilot. In the beginning, I would always say you really need the advanced licenses and to go into Copilot. But what I would recommend now is take that branding template and I would add it to your prompt. So when I was creating my pitch deck, I would have added another example of here's the template that I would like for you to use, match coloring and branding with that deck. And they come out great now. And so if you haven't tried that in a while, I would give it a shot.
Amazing. Thank you, Andrea. I didn't know that, actually. This is all changing so much that I was genuinely curious what you would say. Let's see. Have you seen real-world adoption challenges around API integration with Copilot? And my interpretation of this is when it comes to connecting to third-party things, non-Microsoft ecosystem. Yeah, curious your thoughts.
Absolutely. So we've got a plethora of pre-built connectors that you can utilize to connect with external data sources and those things. But there are some challenges. We are moving into this space so quickly, and new connectors are developing every day, that it's really important that you work with your IT shop to make sure that those connectors are set up and ensure that data privacy and security. Often they won't. They'll create some challenges if they're going to expose your data. So it's really important to work with your in-house IT people to make sure that you're meeting all of the things that you need to meet internally.
Amazing. Thank you. I think we have time for a couple more questions. So we have this question on LinkedIn. When accelerating version 1 production, kind of like you were showing in your demo, how do we prevent the human review and approval process from becoming the new corporate bottleneck? So meaning, like, how do we make sure that we're not slowing down while maintaining quality in our work?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And it really kind of depends on what you are working to produce and those things. And so now we've given you a tool that helps you get to V1 so much faster, making sure that when you're prompting, you're fully prompting for what you want so that you are not constantly having to refine a ton, and getting it clear and ready to go. the question becomes for me is, who's the approval person? Is it still the person that's creating it, or are you asking somebody else to create it? And I believe now we can eliminate some of those steps in between. And so from creation to approval should be much, much faster.
And I would add on to say, this is why, the AI literacy overall is just so important, because I'm going to steal one of my favorite Andrea quotes, but Copilot is called Copilot, not pilot. We like to think very intentionally to really emphasize that the other Copilot is the human in the loop. So even though the time savings here are astronomical, we still have to make sure that we're double checking everything Copilot is giving us. And sometimes the question may be, how do we actually double check? One practice that has worked for me is asking Copilot to verify its sources, to verify its logic on how it got to whatever answer it gave you. Just really kind of challenge it, like Andrea said before, and that will help kind of dissect, like, okay, like how did it come to this answer, and being able to determine if it really is, fully accurate and up to speed, to provide you up-to-date value. So, all right, I think we have time for one more question. It's a very, very general question. Sometimes Copilot won't create the documents I asked for. What's the best way to prompt Copilot to get usable results without a lot of rework or entering the same prompt different ways?
So depending on what version of Copilot that you have, for what I showed today, you'll notice that I only asked for one or two things and was very clear in my ask. Think of Copilot as a 2-year-old or an 8th grader or a freshman in college. You got to be real clear with those directions and what those asks are. So don't overcomplicate it. Don't contradict yourself, and be very clear what you're expecting. And keeping in mind that when working with Copilot, you want to ask it to create things within the Microsoft world. Word documents, Excel documents, PowerPoints. When you just ask things that are broad, presentation or whatever, it may get confused and not understand that. So being very specific and where you want the output from.
Amazing. And then one last super quick bonus one. How do you decide whether a problem should be solved with AI, automation, or traditional software?
Oh gosh, that feels like a loaded question. I don't know. Right now, in the world that I live in, AI seems to be the answer, but there are plenty of times when I just want to create it myself and those things. And I think it's important that you decide which tool is the best for you, depending on what you're doing and what you're trying to solve for. But I do think that not everything has to go to Copilot. A basic search, you can still use Bing. Maybe you're looking for a restaurant, and Copilot might ask you like 10 more questions before it gives you a result for what restaurant to go to dinner to, and you could just use a simple app or a web search.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea. Well, I promise this is the last one. Andrea, how many of the 50 states in the United States do you have left to visit?
I have 4 states. I just knocked several off my list, and so excited. I need to get to Indiana, Michigan, and the Dakotas.
Amazing. Well, wishing you best of luck on your home stretch. Very excited for you. And thank you again so much for having us, for teaching us how you use AI in so many different ways. And, I myself have learned a lot, and I hope the audience has as well. So whether, this is good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, whatever, hope you have a great rest of your day or night. And thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to check out more educational content like this on our AI Skills Fest Navigator on aiskillsfestnavigator.microsoft.com, and follow Microsoft Learn on LinkedIn and YouTube. Till next time, and happy AI Skills Fest. Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.